Right, now just say something like, it's crazy, but I've always wanted to be a... Oh, the battery's gone. Can't do that. I'm going to interview Sevi about her experience in Edinburgh.
Well, I was born and raised in Germany until I was 16, and then I moved to California in the States for another 6 years, and now I'm here. My family is from Iran, but I've traveled. My grandmother lives in India, my grandfather lives in the States. I have relatives all over the world, and I studied abroad twice. So
Where did you study?
in Italy and then in Thailand, in Bangkok. Yeah, I was looking for programs which were similar to media studies, but they bridged a gap between digital media and some sociology aspect of the culture and how they impact it. And I was looking at several universities within the UK, and Edinburgh appealed the most to me.
Okay.
It's a gorgeous city. I really love this city. It feels like you're constantly walking through history. It's a bit of time travel. It is a smaller city than I'm used to, but I very much like it because you can walk everywhere and it's very active, and there's always some nooks and crannies to find and little streets to get lost in. And it's definitely a great city. I can see myself staying here, but besides the weather and the darkness. I live right on the meadows, which is fantastic. I live in an old boys' school, which was called Gillespie's, which was also the school which Miss Jean Brodie was inspired by. And my window, like, I love my room because I have a very typical British windowsill, which faces the meadows, and from there I can look out onto the castle. So I sit in there a lot with my laptop on my lap and study and read and watch people go by. I definitely had some expectations of how Edinburgh would look like because I went on Google, I virtually walked through the city, and I looked up where I would live and my housing was, and yeah. And especially when I select universities, I do look at the surroundings because I want to live in a good city as well. Yeah. And I looked at what opportunities there were to do for other outside curricular activities. But yeah, I do rock climbing. There's a really nice rock climbing wall with the university and has a very nice gym, but also one of Europe's biggest rock walls is in Ratho, which is an old quarry converted into a rock climbing wall. And there's a lot of hiking to do as well here, which I liked. I just went to Blackford Hill last week. And Springs is a joint research laboratory by the University of Edinburgh School of Informatics and New Media Scotland, and it explores the significance of new media in informatics. But it covers a very wide variety of, we do academic events, conferences, panels, expanded moving screenings, fashion shows, events, really everything. So it's very nice because it covers a broad range, and we use technology in very innovative ways. So I've learned a lot about it as well. How to use like DL2 projectors and how to use a rec room and little things like that, which turned out to be very useful. Yeah, I'm an intern, but my official title is program assistant. My final project looks at the role of information and communication technologies in contentious politics, particularly on the role of ICTs in revolution and protests and how they're used to gain global media visibility, how the government uses them against them, and also how it helps people to coordinate their revolution and protest. I did study Egypt extensively for my research reading project, which resulted in a 10,000 word paper. And I really enjoyed that because every revolution tries to use communication technologies in an innovative way, but the Egyptians did it particularly well, and there was a lot of global involvement to help them as well. And I find it very interesting how technology and the ability to communicate with each other from like one to many and many to many and many to one is bringing new movements and new forms of movements. It's changing the dynamics of how they behave, and there's also shift in power away from the sovereign state. The new media allows people to instantly report as witnesses in real time. And it also allows them to create a lot of citizen-based journalism, but at the same time, if used correctly, they have the power to gain the attention and bring their issues to the mainstream media and to be featured in it, which is a very important part for movements, because if you're not covered and get no attention, it's very difficult to gain success. Sometimes it is unconsciously, but people use technologies to broadcast and amplify their voices, which is often picked up by the mainstream media. But then there's also several movements which tried to get attention from the media, as it happened in the Philippines and Thailand, and the Egyptian Revolution in 2011, and in Iran as well, where CNN in the initial stages failed to cover it, and then was not forced, but kind of coerced by individuals into covering the events. Eventually I want to go get my PhD, but I want to take some time off, because just to work and really figure out what I want to study. But I wouldn't mind going into a mix of like a PhD between like communication and sociology and journalism. I would love to do investigative journalism. I would very much enjoy that, but I don't think you can be independent solely. You need to work with others and also have some support behind you. But I wouldn't mind going out and traveling for a bit and doing my own research. I want to stay in academics and research because I very much enjoy research, which is why I chose this degree, because it had such a strong research emphasis. I didn't want to have as much of a taught element, and I wanted the freedom to pursue my own research while I had academic supervision and support around me. But ultimately I would love to go into journalism. I always had a desire to become a war photographer and bring images of what's happening in those spaces to people, instead of like the glorified images of American troops raiding a house. I'd rather like to show the more human side, and I feel images and photographs.
Just conked out. That's good.